Good afternoon. I'm glad to welcome everyone who joined us today. The topic of our discussion that we are going to engage in is the digital theatre. Well, this phrase still evokes controversial feelings. It is something that we thought cannot be mixed. But we know that digital technologies are used not only to build 3D models or scenery. All these new technologies actually come on stage. Sometimes we think that when theatre experts are being frightened with theatre technologies, in fact, it is difficult to make them fear that, because for theatre it is not even it is just another wave of this technological pandemic. It has managed to survive several waves of new technological changes, and it managed to tame all the new technologies, and it managed to still be centered around a living actor. Today we are going to discuss all that with the participants of our discussion. Our panelists today are Dmitry, Bertman, General and Artistic Director of the Helikon-Opera Theatre, Vladimir Mashkov, the Artistic Director of Oleg Tabakov Theatre, and Dmitry Otyakovsky, Director, Artistic Director of Opera Film Studio, Guest Director in Mariinsky Theatre. We have 45 minutes for this discussion, and I suggest we take turns here, not forgetting about the tight schedule that we have. My first question to you, to all those who are making the theatre of today: what do you think about the image of the future theatre that we are going to have? You are probably the future directors of theatres for the years to come, hopefully up to the end of this century. So what do you think about the image that we will have in the future? Who will be the first? Well, I'd like to start. Thinking about the theatre of the future, well, I think we've always been doing that, and it is something we do today, because you've justly said, no matter what happens, no matter what new media and forms of art come to life, nevertheless, the heart of the theatre is a real artist, a living artist. And I distinguish here between an actor and an artist. Von Wiesen used to say that an actor is someone who embodies the image, but the artist is the real creator. We are going to be attracted by the theatre because nothing is more mesmerizing than this miracle that is being created on stage. The essence of acting is reconstructing human natural behavior. Andrei Konchalovsky once said that the most expensive effect in cinema is the image of a real artist's face. And in this matter, any technology can be applied to theatre and all the processes there. The actors are going to adapt these technologies, and they will find a way to play with them. They will absorb this technology and tap them into the thoughts of the director and the creator of a theatre piece. We have different technical possibilities that we can apply in the theater. We don't have all the technologies as yet. And in fact, I've been dreaming for a long time of creating a space that could enable actors to have a bigger impact on the minds of the audience, because it is there where the true miracle is happening. Light and digital technologies help the audience track and follow the actors' movements. Sound put through sound technologies and microphones distort the real sound of human voice. But I think, nevertheless, the technologies will help to amplify the living acting effect. Well, if we go back to Stanislavski, you remember theater was changing back in the time as well. Stanislavski and Korj, they were actually looking and employing the most expensive state-of-art technologies that were available at the time. Right you are. Back in the time, in the 30s, where people's theaters were in trend, Stanislavski was asked of a device. For example, a theater was being designed and it was supposed to host a 15,000 people audience. And just imagine the scale of it. You need to prepare the team for that. But Stanislavski was not frightened by that. He said, well, then you need to scale up your technologies in order to maintain the live performance. Once technologies become more important than actors, or actors and technologies will be out of balance, theater will be dying. Dmitry, what about you? Well, I can only support it. I think that theater will be living on, and there is always a balance between the theater and the audience. And the audience is changing as well. It is becoming less prepared and more naive, and the audience is changing. We are to blame for that as well. I mean, theater professionals, because very often we say the word art, applying it to technologies, actually. Even in cinema we have, and in theaters we have screens, we use close-ups, and I think that we are using one in the same formats. Another thing is that technologies that we use in theater, of course, they need to absorb new digital trends. These technologies reached a totally new level. Vladimir Mashkov uses these new technologies, these wonderful light machines, sound technique and equipment. That gives wonderful opportunities. Without those pieces of equipment, our plays would not be the same, because all these technologies help actors. But on the other hand, these technologies have to be used properly, because we know many theaters where these technologies in fact are available, but at the same time they are not being used in a proper way. I remember once I was participating in a commission deciding on the renovation of one theater, and then one expert there said that, well, you know, we do not need all those plungers, and I think that these props in fact are not necessary, because our director only uses very basic machinery. I think we all remember those times where we used vinyls, VHS, LPs. You know, all those technologies are not in use any longer. We are not using CDs any longer, and it is not happening because it is not in use. Those who want to listen to Anna Netrebko, they go to theater to listen to her. And the CDs with her records, they are available, but at the same time you can download all those records from the internet, and we do not have CD slots, CD changers in our cars any longer. I think the theater has proved that nothing is like a living performance. Theater is very frank. It is an honest art, just like because our arts, the arts that we are using, it is based on the essence of our profession. It is the live sound, and our performers, our singers, have to be very good at what they do. A small comment. We understand when a singer is singing well, when the sound is right and beautiful. But how can you assess the performance of an artist? You know, you need to understand what is happening on stage. Because this person is both a director and the performer. How to understand this complex system and to assess what is happening? That's the question. Well, I think that there is the Zaslavskiy method that you can apply there. You listen to the performance, you look at the performance. Well, it is not quite so. Zaslavskiy, in fact, asked to, at a certain point, to forget all the things that he was suggesting before. We have a unique method that we use in our theater, and it is based on self-research that is happening within the actors. And we need to understand how to apply the digital technologies to that. But at the same time, we understand that we need these digital technologies. We need that for acting. Okay, I think that Dmitry Otyakovsky was suggested to take part in this panel to enlighten us on how theater is going to develop later on. I think that right now you've understood that you need to present what you have right now. As far as I know, you are writing a thesis, and you think that, in fact, digital technologies and digital theater opens new opportunities to us. Could you please elaborate on that? I remember that there was a song saying that, in fact, theater is capable, is omnipowerful, and can do anything, but in fact not quite. Okay, thank you. Let me talk about that, but before that, I would like to introduce a disclaimer. I'm in fact a fiercest advocate of these of classic theater technologies. This is a false dichotomy, and in fact it has always been so. Theater experts and directors have always been following the newest developments of all the digital technologies. I'm working in the domain of digital opera, and there is one aspect of it that differs this domain from the drama theater. First, few words about how pandemic started for us. We were in Nuremberg. We were working on Mr. Rubinstein's opera, and then the pandemic was announced. But at the time, we thought that this was happening only for a couple of weeks. but we know what happened after that. Right, I remember how it happened for us here too. Okay, yeah, so the process for us was stopped, all the rehearsals were suspended, and when I was back in St. Petersburg, I realized that it is not going to end soon. We had an international crew, and the people were coming from Germany and Italy, and we were working on a new project that was a screen live. There was a main character that we had there on the screen, and this character was interacting with all the others through the screen. We had all the participants being physically present scattered across the globe. Some people were in Paris, our tenor was in Nuremberg. And then, when it came to recording singing, we realized that people were not used to singing along the music without the real sound, and it was very difficult to coordinate and concentrate all these participants, bring them together. So I had to actually play and perform all the roles and record all my actions all the way through, recording my emotions and living through all the responses in order to make that happen. In fact, finally, this project was a big success, and we received an Onegin Prize for the main for the breakthrough of 2020, and that spurred another project. We got a budget for that. We made an agreement with a symphonic orchestra, and in fact, Mr. Liperkus, one of our performers, was in Portugal. So I had to order him a recorder for him to be able to make a high-quality voice record. And in fact, this project was very interesting as well. Altogether, we gathered an audience of 200,000. The number of viewers was 200,000, and in fact, this figure is quite good for an opera performance. And then we started thinking seriously about digital theatre, about what it is, and about how different it is from the classic format, about what is a digital opera. To me, I said that I think that, in fact, on one hand, that's the digital space where we apply different technologies. On the other hand, we can also define it as transforming live performance into the digital format, and that gives a development to what we usually do on stage. And number three, the definition number three, is a totally new format. It is not replacing the conventional theatre, conventional opera. It is a totally new creation created in the form of an app. It's an application. We created all the elements that are required in order to create that opera, and right now you can download this app and enjoy this format through this app. And finally, we have established a digital laboratory. That's a cultural project. It was started in Taurida, and in fact, we were discussing in details about how we create this project, what is needed to do that. We discussed all the digital technologies there in Taurida, worked in terms of this laboratory, and continue these discussions on from that. Thank you very much. Let's move on. I remember one case. Once Alexandrinsky Theatre decided to perform masquerade play. Mr. Fokin decided to reconstruct Yuriev evacuation, and I remember that I once came across this figure, 6.5 million, for reconstruction the voice from old records. That's a lot. This play, in fact, was performed, and it is amazing to me that in the reviews I never came across this piece of information about how much was spent on that. People talk about CMARC's performance, but the element that absorbed such a huge amount of money and something that was a key element of that play wasn't actually in the focus of the audience. It wasn't even commented on. Well, I think the matter is that in theatre we experiment all the time. We need to be open to absolutely anything. So that's why it happened so.
Mashkov. Well, you mentioned Tarita, the Russian organization. Well, let me say this. In our theater, working together with our artists from the School of Young Actors, we've tried our hand at this. What we lack are experts in the stage lighting and special effects. Well, this is an entire domain of work. These things should help the performance of an actor. So the idea, the way I see it, is to train the people who will work in this field. They will offer up their own pool of projects. And this perhaps may be a point for greater synergy. Zaslavskiy. Well, we think that digital technology can help the artist. Mashkov. Quite so. Zaslavskiy. Well, are there any things you specifically want to digitize? Bertman. Yes, we do. We are trying to create archives for pieces of art that exist today. Say, there is a performance in Oleg Tabakov's theater. Well, they have a record from one camera or two, but we need something bigger than that. Zaslavskiy, yes, this is what Helikon wanted to start doing before the pandemic. Bertman, true, and this is the Culture TV channel wanted to try this. Regrettably, there is only one TV channel in the country that have a professional cameraman who can do this. We've tried articulating cooperation with other TV channels and failed. We need sound crew, we need special equipment, we need trained people, we need musical directors and sound directors. This is a huge scale effort. And so we would need these people to work in conjunction with the creative director, with those who are aware what the director meant when he staged a particular performance. And this is the mission, as it were, for the digital art today. And I do call it digital art. We need to create an archive, a professionally made archive of the genius performance of unique directors, of unique performers. They would create a heritage for the generations to come, and I know that projects of this kind exist. But this was, dabbling with an issue. It's more of an observation than an actual record. Say 3 cameras were installed in a theater, but it's not a professional camera. It's like a CCTV security camera. Zaslavskiy. Well, it's an interesting genre. Look into the world through the eyes of a security detail. Otyakovsky. Well, we can corroborate this. Everything must remain human-centered. Even in the video game that we've been making, the key comments always came about the performance, the voice. Oh, what a vocal range. Oh, what a performance. This is the feedback that we've got. But I particularly hinged to another comment. I have no idea what's going on here, but I love it. And we have a news feed in our social media. We have feedback from people who are not exactly theater goers, but who have an opinion about what we do. And we have a lot of feedback from people who was scrolling through public groups, through cat videos, and boom, there is a Rachmaninoff opera. This might be his only exposure to classical music in his life, specifically if he's not particularly fond of classical music. So that would be a channel of interaction for him with the world of classical music. And this is exactly what Bertman was talking about. He gets exposed to the heritage of the human culture. He would have never gone to theater to see this, and yet there it goes. He can view it at the screen of his smartphone. This is a huge effort if we really want to bring the art to the masses. Bertman, so you had that kind of guy, Otyakovsky. Yes, we have. And it's not just one guy. Say 130,000 people have watched the Misery Night opera. Well, some of them will leave feedback, some of them won't. Bertman, well, no sane person would ever go to an opera theater, I'll tell you. Otyakovsky, but he can, he can. We are living in a country where we have opera theater. Granted, not in every community, but we have them. And these infrequent visitors, they can benefit from this. Say the Russian Baroque, or other operas, or even contemporary operas, contemporary performers that are not that frequent a fixture in the modern-day theater. Say, take composers such Mussorgsky or Rimsky-Korsakov. Their operas are few and far between in the repertoire of any theater. So what we are saying is that this new digital art is the medium for bringing the art closer to people, and it's a way of creating more. I'm sorry for taking so much time, but we have composed a libretto using a neural network. So we've picked a theme, a digital ethics. A composer, a living composer, has written music, and then the Google Translator performed this as a song. We've tried using the vocal decoder to make it sound like a song. So it was the human creation made with the help of a robot. Bertman, may I chip in? There's one critical remark here. Heads of theaters and ministers of education might be listening to us. So the crucial thing for them, the key takeaway for them should be something very particular. There was one government official who told me, well, you broadcast your plays in the internet. Why do we spend so much time with the theaters? Just imagine the amount of money that you will make if you just broadcast it online. Zaslavskiy. Well, I believe that the pandemic has actually shown how useful and how vital theaters are. Look at the other countries' example. People went to protest, they took to the streets. Once all the theaters have started broadcasting their plays for free, people understood the value of it. So people of art, people of the theater, are those through whom we've stayed sane during the pandemic. And now we're going back to the regular human life. Mashkov, you mentioned the stages and plays that have, quote-unquote, digitized or televised. And the biggest question is, how do we shoot this? Yes, culture TV channel perhaps is the pool of talent to tap into. But you see, the whole performance is geared towards the people in the audience who are in the theater. Well, you see, you can put displays right on stage. It just wouldn't work. people would not perceive it. A human eye perceives stages and displayed images in a completely different way. So there will be a mismatch in the mind. What genre are we working for? Are we working in? It's a very fine, minute detail. Say, I'm in a circus right now. You have the... and we have a close-up, and we have a close-up, and then we have a different scale, different picture. How do we capture the breath of the audience when they see people risking their lives? How do we sync it up with their applause, with their joy, with the whole vibe that is channeled into the artists? Well, that's the crux of the matter. And how do we show the artist? That's the question. Zaslavskiy. Well, we perhaps can tap into the Soviet experience where we have 4 or 5 records. One is a record with the public, with the audience. Mashkov. Well, we need a whole different set of stage lights. It takes a completely different staging set and different lighting to look good on screen, as different from looking good on the scene. How do we synthesize this, is the question. Otyakovsky. Well, a minor comment on elaboration on the monetizing. The thing is, the digital technology does not supplant theater. Any sane person understands that it's much better to listen to Anna Netrebko live in opera than on YouTube. Nobody argues with that. But it begs a question. Are we bringing the art to the masses? Is the way of outreach. But still, the question is, how do we support the artists? Remember when the whole theaters have closed down for lockdowns and people were deprived, were stripped from the funds of the sources of income, and people went working as the delivery guys because their profession was banned. They could not work. So digital technology as the mean of monetizing artist work is an innovative way, or take donations when people can fund the performance online. They send their donations as the performance is going live, or take institutional funding for too big to fail projects, say opera festivals or folk music festivals. We should bring them to the digital format as well. And Mr. Mashkov was completely right. Are we making a movie, are we shooting a movie, or are we staging a performance? It takes a completely different set of expertise. These are two different genres, and they operate through different canons, different laws. And this is not something that we want to do. This is a budding field of knowledge. We are exploring it as we go. How do we present the gems, the crown jewels of art in such a way that we support the artists, in such a way that we preserve this heritage? And if, God forbid, there is a new lockdown or a new crisis, how do we overcome it? If a person cannot work, cannot do whatever he was taught to do, and how can he, stay afloat financially? How do we preserve the traditions of Stanislavski and Pokrovsky? How can a person, an artist, broadcast himself to the world, to make money while doing so, and to preserve the heritage? Well, I think Zaslavskiy is making remarks that, well, thesis defended. Zaslavskiy, well, it makes me remember how several years ago I was in the office of the biggest video game maker that creates all kind of apps that we are using day in and day out, and they showed me a hologram of a ballerina. It disappeared and appeared again. It was like a game, but it was perceived as a game, not as an art. Bertman. Well, you have the Maria Callas digital show. She makes the bows. The orchestra is there. Mashkov. Well, there is the ABBA concert hall that is being built right now, where the digital holograms of the artists will perform. Zaslavskiy. Well, we still have some time to spare, so another issue. Is there a way for digital technology to instill new life into the theater? How can they put the best of the theater to the limelight? How can we highlight this? Mr. Bertman already mentioned, but perhaps some other insights. Say somebody tells you, you can order this, this and that kind of equipment. What would you say, Mashkov? I would say, what do you have? What have you got? Well, you know, it's like a sandbox. You see all kinds of toys. I just say, bring it on whatever you have. You have, well, do you have a flying kettle? What else do you got? If you're a giver, I'm a taker. And I will employ it, I'm telling you. Mr. Bertman will hold me to my word. Zaslavskiy, well, just make the decoration, we'll drape it up, we'll present it as an actor, or whatever you need it. Mashkov, well, you see, like I said, when science and theater go in lockstep, there will be inventions on both sides of the spectrum. Because we are letting our imagination flow in a variety of domains. Otyakovsky. Well, we started with a quote from Stanislavski, who was always a pioneer in the new technology. Imagine the whole gamut of technology that is available today, and if only they were affordable and accessible for Russian theaters, say 3D printers and 3D scanners, and to reproduce them on stage, that would be a breakthrough. Zaslavskiy. I recently went to a restaurant, and they served white beans and squid. And well, it looks good. It was kind of a 3D printed. It looks good, but it doesn't taste very much. Well, yeah, it's like Otyakovsky. It's like fake Christmas trees, fake Christmas toys. They shine, they glisten, but they don't bring you joy. True, but you see, the technology of Bitcoin can give you an opportunity of protecting the IP, the intellectual property, and the digital ownership. So all the technology related to new biotechnology that can help us breed and grow a kind of a semi-alive props. That's something to look into. Since we're talking about digital theater, I'm interested in, specifically in the screen life technology. Theater has always fought for the right to show the human soul, a close-up of it. How can we translate it to songs and stage performance? I think that the screen life gives us a chance to be a firebrand, a mouthpiece of our biggest fears. I mean, say a person, he has a smartphone in his hand, he's writing a message, he types something, he erases it, he types it again, he adds a smile. So it's a whole new aesthetics which we spend hours on end every day. And I think this is an aspect of human life that can be put on stage or on screen, and this is something that new technology offers us. Zaslavskiy, I spent 4 hours on my phone yesterday. Mashkov. Yet, but what are we following? What are we looking at? We're looking at the human attention, the attention span. And we can decipher the human behavior through these symbols and emojis on screen. But what's the biggest enigma? What moves a man? Why his inner psychological workings move people the most? What's the content of his soul, of his life? And whichever technology we use, if it's not aiding to enrich the human experience, it's void, it's pointless. Zaslavskiy. And a human being is an actor, both in a dramatic theater and elsewhere. I've been to a high-tech performance once. I even asked the director to have a look at the background, how it's made. And I did not enjoy it. Whatever I could see, I saw when I was a pure spectator, unlike any other theater, Mashkov. But this is the linchpin principle. We need to look at the here and now and not try to reproduce things from past. Zaslavskiy, well, I even wanted to bring them to the court. I spent 5,000 rubles and I did not enjoy it. pay me back. Otyakovsky, the question was about the technology of the future. I cannot respond for the theater in its entirety, but speaking of our digital laboratory, we are preparing a web opera series. It was specifically written by a contemporary composer to be viewed within an app, and it will tell the story of the pandemic. So it was inspired by the current day realities, and we wanted to use the deepfake technologies. So it's a Don Juan who has a Tinder app, and he can swipe left and right and find the partners, find romance. So again, a new idea. And we want to share our experiences internationally. We want to launch a web opera festival here and now. We have Skolkovo, we have best IT graduates in the world who are poached left, right and center. And using the digital technology and pool of our talent, Russia can spearhead, can be in the vanguard of this new movement. Zaslavskiy. Do you want your theater to be a high-tech theater? Mashkov. No, not at all, not in the slightest. So you're not tempted? No, I'm not. Mashkov. We want to remain a theater of living performance. It sounds all right. But once we lose the human touch, the physical contact, the warmth of the human handshake, the breath of the audience, the joy of the viewers, it will die. Every story told is something bygone. Artist is a marathon runner. You start as a young budding actor, and you grow up as the technologies mature. If the technology exists, it means it's just a step in the way, and a human being is unpredictable. Zaslavskiy, at what age do you employ people? Mashkov, the theater school age of admission is 15 years. Then they get a profession, get a vocation, but starting from even as freshmen, they start working in the theater. Mr. Bertman, high-tech, what about you? Otyakovsky, well, they have the highest technical theater in Moscow. Bertman, well, yeah, we have young guys as well. I think from the day one, from the freshman, they start working in the theater. Mashkov, that's the only way that the freshman can be embedded in the profession. It's a craft. It can only be taught as a part of an oral tradition. You enter the profession and you live in it for your entire life. Well, I think there is one specific advantage in what we do, says Zaslavskiy. There are fewer opportunities to make your way in a Bolshoi theater or in a huge institutional theater as you have in the digital lab, I guess. Zaslavskiy. Oh yeah, we have the 70+ age group who are the typical theater goers. So it's a great thing that you introduced this new digital technology. But I guess the current intellectual rights legal framework still protect us from using all the breadth of the technology. But it's a way to approach the new viewers. We have 130,000 viewers. Are we meant to wrap up the discussion? Yes, we are, much to our chagrin. Thank you so much for taking part in this conversation. And let me remind you that we spoke about the digital theater, and my interlocutors were Vladimir Mashkov, head of the Oleg Tabakov, head of the Oleg Tabakov Theater, Dmitry, Otyakovsky, director and artistic director of the Opera Film Studio, and Dmitry Bertman. Thank you, everyone, for watching.